Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. You know, one question I ask every guest on Everyday Martial Artist is about their favorite martial arts book. And there's never been one quite like Martial Theory by Steve Pearlman, described as the art of war for the martial arts. Martial Theory helps any martial artist or instructor take their understanding and teaching to the next level. And at martialtheoryU.com, you'll find a global community with instructor groups, Q&A with Steve, live events, and demonstrations to help you apply martial theory directly to your training. It's not just a book, it's a movement. Find Martial Theory on Amazon, and when you join martialtheoryU.com, use discount code EverydayMA for 20% off. That's under $20 a month for life. That's martialtheoryU.com, code EverydayMA. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts and other stuff they're involved in. My guest today is a longtime martial artist, security professional, author, and one of the most influential voices in the study of real-world violence and self-defense. His perspective was forged long before he ever stepped into a martial arts school. Growing up in a gang-infested neighborhoods in Los Angeles, he learned firsthand that violence is rarely clean, fair, or predictable. Later, through work in bodyguarding, bouncing, and event security, he spent years keeping the peace and protecting others in situations where trouble often arrived uninvited. That experience shaped the way he approached martial arts. Rather than searching for a single best style, he became interested in what works, when it works, and why. That mindset eventually led to his reputation as a martial analyst and to his development of what he calls martial mechanics, a framework for understanding how techniques function in specific environments and circumstances. Beyond the physical side of self-defense, he's devoted decades to studying the dynamics of violence itself, what causes it, how it unfolds, and the personal, social, and legal consequences that follow. His work has challenged many common assumptions about fighting, self-protection, and the realities of surviving violent encounters. He's the author of more than 25 nonfiction books covering subjects ranging from street fighting, threat assessment, communication, de-escalation, and self-defense law. He has lectured at universities, police academies, and government agencies, and has served as an expert witness in court cases involving violence and self-defense. Today, due to his wife's disability and some health issues of his own, he's now semi-retired and focusing on writing fiction. Please welcome my guest today, Mr. Marc MacYoung. How you doing today, Marc?
Pretty good. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. I know we've gone back and forth for a few months and you've been busy with traveling and a little bit of stuff. And I'd say this to all my guests, but anytime someone's willing to take just a little bit of time out of their day to be a guest on the show and talk about their life in the world of martial arts and other stuff, I truly, truly appreciate it. And I thank you for being here.
Well, you know, after over 50 years of dealing with this subject, I am kind of interested in the topic, so it's fun to talk about it.
That's good. That helps, because I've had a few guests who they were excited to be on the show, but it was like they didn't want to talk. It was like, you know, sometimes it's like pulling teeth to get them to answer questions. So people who love talking about it, they're my favorite guests.
That's not going to be a problem.
Nice. Nice. Well, I mentioned in the intro a lifelong martial artist, but I'd like to know kind of where that started. I know I mentioned, you know, growing up in bad areas of Los Angeles, but where did that first interest in martial arts kind of come from? What was that spark that kicked off your martial arts journey?
Okay, a lot of people go into the martial arts to become a fighter.
Mm-hmm.
I was having problems with fighting and violence, etc., with where I grew up. So I went into the martial arts to become a better fighter.
Okay.
Right. And that's a small but important difference.
Yes.
And I think I was 10 years old when I first got introduced to karate.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it was what I refer to as traditional karate. So I, went out and tried it and got my butt kicked.
Okay.
And that kind of like, all right, I got to find something that works. And that's kind of what shaped me. And I've been, let's see, I think I've studied like 7 different martial arts.
Okay.
And basically what I would do is I would encounter a live fire situation and, there'd be problems that came with it. And I'd say, okay, what style addresses these problems? Right? Like I got into Wing Chun because I got in a fight in between 2 pool tables. And without thinking, I tried to throw a rear-legged roundhouse kick.
Okay.
And my knee encountered the pool table.
Ah.
And I ended up doing the owie dance while the other guy started doing a tattoo on my head. So it was like, okay, I think I need to find a system that works really well in cramped spaces that you have limited room to move. And in my research, somebody said, hey, Wing Chun. And turned out that there's a guy named Hawkins Chung who had a Wing Chun school just up the street. Okay. And I didn't know who Hawkins Chung was at the time, but this is the guy who used to fight for Bruce Lee. They were friends in Hong Kong. And, Hawkins said, he'll afraid of getting his face messed up. I just go in and fight, right? And learning how to fight in cramped, close quarters became really, really important later on when I got into violence professions because, how many people train to fight in a hallway? Right. Right. They're thinking they got a wide open parking space and it's like, you may not have that much room, right? Have you ever had to fight in a doorway? Mm-hmm. Yep. I have, right? And it really does cramp your movement and your ability to move, right? At the same time, once you start working on it, you begin to see how much movement is possible in such cramped quarters. Mm-hmm. And once you get those skills, people who don't know how to do it are at a disadvantage. Yeah.
So you said you're 10 years old. That first of all, do you remember what style of karate it was, and how long did you stay there before you realized you needed to find something else?
I think I was there about a year. Okay. And there were a couple of times where I tried to use what I had been taught in actual violence, and I began to have some problems. Now, along those lines, I should say that it would take me years before I actually encountered karate that works. Okay. Right. And, something I mentioned that we can talk about. And my friend Sam Walker came up with this model to explain the different flavors of karate. Right. Mm-hmm. And his model is that there's classical, there's traditional, and then there's commercialized. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I have a friend who his father was taught karate by Gichin Funakoshi. Wow. Yeah. And the first time I saw this man do karate, we were in a auditorium, and I stood up and I yelled to the entire room, pointing at him, that would work. Right? Because he had stuff in what he was doing that you don't see in either commercialized or traditional karate. Okay. But his mechanics were amazing. And I mean, wow. Right. Mm-hmm. So what I began to really do, because of my focus was on application, is I began to look into what is it that makes this move work? Right? What are the mechanics behind it? What is the application? When do you do it? And what I found is a lot of people actually, what they end up with is doing martial arts that are kind of like a detailed, polished car body. But when you lift up the hood, there's no engine and transmission there. It's missing what makes the car work or make the car go. But it's got the form, right? Right. I'm not a big guy. Mm-hmm. Okay. And in my choice of professions, a lot of times I ended up going against guys who were a lot bigger than I was. Right. So the thing was, I needed stuff that I could rely on to work. Otherwise, I didn't want to go in, this guy's 6'4". I'm 5'8". Do I want to fight him? Not exactly, but going head to head with somebody like that was a really good way to get bounced off the walls. So I had to look at how to be very effective in what I was doing and how to counter the effectiveness of what he was doing. Okay. And that, it turns out, has been lost from much martial arts training, right? Yeah. So, my practical aspect was always based on that. And I'm just tickled pink when Sam was telling me about classical stuff. See, his instructor was sent by the Marines Marines to study Goju karate through one of the Grand Masters in Okinawa.
Oh, okay.
Because what the Marines said, they took all these different soldiers and said, you go study this, you go study this, you go study this. Bring back what you learned, and we'll form this into the Marine martial art.
Okay.
Okay, so they were really, really amazingly focused on what works. Now, I'll use an example. In classic martial arts, okay, if you throw a front snap kick, were you taught the 4 count when it comes to doing a front snap kick?
I don't believe I was, no.
Okay, you raise your knee, you kick, you retract, you put your foot down.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't called the 4 count, but yeah, that's how I was taught it, yes.
Okay. When they were teaching you that, did they teach you that each one of those moves is an attack by itself?
I'm trying to, because I've learned that under a few different styles. I'm trying to remember if any of my instructors showed it that way. I don't believe so.
Right. Well, again, talking to Sam, he's the one who explained the 4 count in the thing of the first thing is you raise your knee in the guy in something tender. Mm-hmm. Right. The next thing is the snap kick out is we recognize that as what it is. What a lot of people don't know is that the retraction is actually an attack. Right.
Interesting.
But the thing about it is one of the things that I began to look at is, have you ever seen a kata that has a front snap kick and a punch, or a front snap kick followed by a punch?
Yep, definitely. Many times.
What did they tell you it was?
You're basically kicking the guy, and then as they lean forward, you're punching him.
Right. Well, if you think about it, that front snap kick is a long range attack.
Yeah.
Right. So what are you going to do when you kick the guy? Are you kicking him because you're basically kicking him out of the range of your punch?
Yeah. If it's done properly, it should. Yeah.
Well, yeah. You think it's like, so what am I doing here? Am I kicking the guy into a wall and he bounces back so I can punch him? Right. I mean, why does that punch follow the kick? Well, it turns out that one of the things that traditional martial arts did that is they took classic martial arts where the hand was open and they turned it into a punch. Mm. Okay. So now you get the kick and the punch. Well, oddly enough, when you understand, the application of that combo, what you're dealing with is your kick actually misses the guy. You're not kicking him from the front, right? Your kick goes past him. Mm.
Okay.
And it's the retraction which hits him in the back of the knee and buckles his leg.
Okay.
So the guy's in range, and technically he's too close for you to kick. So you kick past him and then kick back with your heel, collapse his leg, and that punch is actually not a punch so much as it's a throw.
Okay.
Because you collapse the guy's structure and then you push him over.
Interesting.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Then putting that foot down is you put your foot down behind the guy's leg and he falls over it.
Nice.
Yeah. Now that when you're talking about classical systems, that's the kind of stuff that you're taught from the get-go. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's like, here's the 4 things you can do with this. So it's not just a front snap kick.
Okay.
Right. It's 4 different attacks. Okay.
Yeah.
And again, same thing with the classical thing. Okay. Part of the reason I was like, I'm getting my ass kicked using karate,
mm-hmm.
right? Until I met Tristan, who was his dad was the Gichin Funakoshi student.
Yep.
Right. The thing is, that punch that starts from the hips?
Yeah.
Right. And it comes out and then it extends and then it retracts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you know that that's actually 4 punches?
Never heard that before, no.
Yeah. The thing about it is, the reason it starts from the hip is it's teaching you basically up close, it's an uppercut.
Okay.
Right. And then as you extend and rotate, it now becomes a mid-range punch. Mm-hmm. And then you extend further out, it becomes a longer range. And the last twist is the furthest range of that punch.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you strike open-handed, that same motion can become either a strike or a drive where you're pushing the guy, or you can pull the guy into a twist and twist him up as you retract. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like with this motion that everybody thinks is a closed fist punch. No. It's a lot of other things. And classical arts know this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But traditional arts, what happened is that when like martial arts became part of the school, it became PE. Like Kano and the judo, the belt system came so, when it was a nationalized in the schools, an instructor could walk in, look at a classroom, and know where everybody is and what they know.
Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't a matter of accomplishment. It was basically ranking. So the teacher knew what you needed to learn. Mm-hmm. Right. But a lot of times what happened with the traditional arts is they took out the really effective stuff that could hurt people. So we think a punch is really hard and you're doing a lot of damage. It's not. It's actually one of the safest ways to deliver force into another human being, because we humans are designed to take impact from the front and from the rear. We have structural abilities, armor you could call it, that and mobility. When we're hit from the front, if our structure gives way, we step back, right? So basically we have giant shock absorbers. Well, the classical systems largely took away those shock absorbers.
Okay.
They manipulated them away. So when they hit, it really hurt you. Okay. It could mess you up. And I mean, part of the things is they would hit from weird angles, right? Mm-hmm. And traditional taught you punch straight.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you get into commercialized, which is fast. Hell, I know I know of one chain, a Taekwondo, or what we call Take My Do school, that offered you a black belt in a year.
Yeah, I've seen those, unfortunately. Yep.
Yes, right. And what they do is that they rely on, if you can, wave your arms and wiggle your foot in a certain way, you get a belt advancement. But they don't give you the mechanics behind what you're doing. And one of the things that Sam's teacher had a story about this. He had heard of a thing called bunkai. Right? Mm-hmm. It's this big magical stuff, which is like, what are the combat applications of this? Right? And he goes to his Okinawan master and says, teach me bunkai of this move. And the teacher goes, okay, you start here with your hand here, you move forward, you tighten these muscles, and you move forward until you get to this point, and then you tighten this muscle, relax the other muscle, and then you begin to rotate. And he went through the mechanics of the punch. Mm-hmm. And the man's name was Lee. And Lee's like, no, I want to know the bunkai. And he's like, okay, you start here and you punch, right? And he goes, no, how do you apply it? And his instructor goes, oh, that's Oyu, not bunkai. Bunkai is how you do it. Oyu is how you use it, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. Really subtle but important thing, because you need to know the bunkai. You actually need to know the mechanics of a move without assigning it purpose. What are the mechanics of what you're doing that will cause you to have structure, will help you generate and deliver power and also receive power? Okay. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, what do you turn? When do you turn it? What's the purpose of the turn? That is bunkai once you have that, then all of a sudden you can look at Oyu. And what I would be doing in teaching is I would extend my hand out and rotate my wrist and ask people, is this a block? Is this a hit? Is this a parry? Is this a hand strike? Is it an arm strike? And the answer is yes. It can be all of those if you have the proper mechanics, right?
Yeah.
But if you've been taught that it's a punch, you're only going to do your muscles a certain way that it would be a punch and only a punch.
Okay. What age were you when you started putting a lot of this together in your mind? I mean, I know you said that, the karate was 10 and only lasted about a year. When did you start forming? Was it at that young age, like 11 or 12, when you started realizing things needed to be done differently? And what was like the next style you seeked out to try to make that? I know you mentioned Wing Chun. Was that after karate? Was that years down the road? Kind of how did that develop?
Okay. I come from what is known as situational poverty. Okay. Which means my family, when my mom and stepdad divorced, we were reduced to hard times. Mm-hmm. And we ended up living in really bad neighborhoods. Now, I lived in a part of Los Angeles known as Venice that in my high school, everybody was a minority. Okay. And it was gang infested. There were multiple gangs of different ethnic persuasions. And it was not a kumbaya singing happy love fest of diversity. People didn't like each other. Okay. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of fighting in between ethnic groups And I'm kind of dark skinned. So, I mean, like the first time I was ever shot at, I was on my way to buy comic books and I was wearing a flannel shirt, which I now know better at the time because that was a vato, a Mexican gang apparel.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody decided to do a drive-by and shoot at me.
Wow.
Okay. They thought I was a member of the other gang, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, for the record, that's when I proved in-dimensional space travel does work. You can move from point A to point B with no time in between, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you had that level of violence happening. Growing up in a barrio, which is what my neighborhood was, knives were really, really common, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Then there was hand-to-hand fighting, right? And it was all these different levels of force. And I needed to have stuff that would work basically with whatever I was dealing with.
Yeah.
Okay. And I needed to be familiar with this stuff. And, one of the things I learned very early is you're not always going to get the first shot off.
Right.
Right. The other guy may beat you to the draw. Right. And there were a number of times, like one time I got into an incident where the guy and I were confronting each other and he crossed his arms and something just wasn't right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, I don't know what it is, but I need to get the hell out of here. And as I leapt back, he uncrossed his arms and he had a knife in his hand.
Okay.
And he slashed, and I was backpedaling fiercely. So his slash missed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the things that I kind of had a problem with in a lot of what was being taught as martial arts is they're assuming they're going to get the first move.
Yeah.
Right. Or maybe I can take a couple of hits and then I'll get into my rhythm. And it's like, no, in actual violence, you can't have that attitude. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times what would happen is I'd be looking for something that I could use immediately. And that was stuff that, I began to look at it from the standpoint of not only what is actually defensive, but an actually offensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I began, and the term I eventually settled on was neutralization. Okay. What can I do to this guy that affects his ability to either attack or defend? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I knew a guy who, have you ever seen the TV series Rogue Heroes?
I've heard of it. I don't think I've ever watched it.
Okay. It's about the British SAS, the Special Air Services.
Yep.
And in Africa, these guys were just playing hob with the Germans.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And what the main thing was that they were going in and blowing things up and interrupting supply chains. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I knew a guy who was one of the original SAS Rogue Hero guys.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. And, talking to him and the conversations with him, one of the things that I learned from him was you cut off their supply lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you affect their ability to fight. Okay.
Yep.
And what I did is I took, because I wasn't using explosive and blowing up planes like he was. And by the way, Rogue Heroes is a really fun show. Yeah. It's worth watching. But I began to look at okay, what do people need to fight? They need to see, they need to be in balance, they need to be oriented, and they need to be able to breathe. Okay. Those are just four things.
Yeah.
If you focus on messing those up, you really make it hard for him to either attack or defend because he's so busy handling that problem, right? Mm-hmm. Or trying to figure out what's going on, because usually with training, they don't have experience with the stuff being messed with.
Right.
Okay. And again, when you look at classic martial arts, the original martial arts, those systems actually did focus on messing those up. But traditional martial arts, they stopped focusing on it and it became more sports oriented.
Okay.
And then commercialized became a show. Right. So the thing about it is I started looking at pain, for example, as icing on the cake. All right. What I'm doing may or may not hurt, but I guarantee you it's going to make it harder for you to attack or defend. Right.
Yeah.
Now, if it hurts and it causes you shock, well, okay, that's even better. But what can I do to this guy that would mess him up on those levels?
Right.
right? Like if the guy's not, one of the things, human beings are oriented on the 90s. That's in front, that's behind, that's side to side. And I mentioned that I did Salat and I was working, that really got me focused on the angles. Mm-hmm. Right. One of the things that I loved about the style of Salat I studied is it looked like you were coming straight up the middle. Hey, it'll straight up the middle. I'm coming in 90 degrees. Your center line and my center line, it's a contest, right? Yeah. We're going to bash it out. Well, no, what I do is I come in on the 70. 45 is too big because they can see me moving. Coming in at on the 70, it looks like I'm coming straight in until things go horribly wrong for the guy.
Nice.
Because I'm off his center line.
Yeah.
Right. So we're not slugging it out over who controls center line. I have my center line and you have, well, yours isn't going to do you any good, but okay.
Right.
Right. So the thing about it is when you really look at it, this stuff actually used to be in whatever martial arts style you study. Right. Mm-hmm. And if you know how to look and you know what questions to ask, right, you can find these hidden depths. Right. But you need to have the oil or the bunkai that the motion can generate and receive force. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So with that hand rotation that I was talking about, yes, I can use that as a strike. Right. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, if the guy's throwing a straight punch and I just stick my hand up and rotate my arm, like I stick my hand up with my palm down, touch his incoming punch, and then rotate my palm up. And all I have to do is move it, say, an inch to the side. Mm-hmm. And that guy's punch is going to go way past my shoulder. Yeah. Right? That's the mechanics of, but I have to have the structure to be able to do that. So my thing, it became less about blocking than just getting a structure up there and then playing with whatever force he's giving me.
Right. So at what point did you decide to start teaching others? When did that become something that you were passionate about and wanted to start sharing what you were developing? Or were you one of the ones you never wanted to teach and it just kind of fell into your lap?
The thing was, I got to a point where I was so good at this, people were going, can you teach me? Okay. Right. And my thing was, I'm not a teacher. No, I need you to teach me. Right. Well, okay, fine. I'll show you some stuff, but I'm not a teacher. Right. And the thing was, I got sick and tired of repeating myself. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I thought I was going to sit down and write like a 10-page booklet of this is what is important.
Okay.
Right. And imagine a hook in my mouth and dragging my head onto the keyboard. Bam. My girlfriend at the time would walk in and I'd be writing I was working in the movie industry. So we'd have a movie that we'd work on for 6 to 8 weeks. There'd be a lull and then we'd get another movie. Okay. Right. So in the gap, that's when I wrote my first book. Okay. Right. And it turned into like this 150-page book on street fighting. Right. Of mm-hmm. all the extra stuff that nobody's talking about. That like, hey, if you're going to be using this stuff, you need to know this. And, I was just tired of repeating myself. And then I was working on a movie later that I had this book that I'd sent out to publishers. It's like, hey, are you interested? And this one guy walks onto the movie set. And have you ever met somebody who is such a heavyweight that he kind of has his own gravitational field?
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like everything tips over to the side. Mm-hmm. Well, he and I looked at each other and we both recognized what the other was. And, he comes in later and he's wearing a hat with paratrooper wings. And I said, airborne? He goes, no, Green Beret, 27 years. Oh, okay. Enter Major John Donovan.
Okay.
Right? He's an explosive expert. Special forces, yada, yada, yada. And John and I became friends. And I said, hey, John, I got a book here that I don't know how to get this thing published. Right? I mean, I've sent it to all these people and goes, let me read it. So I gave him a copy and he called me. He says, I read the book. I enjoyed the shit out of it. I sent it to my friend at Paladin Press. I told him to call you. Right. So I get a phone call from this action and adventure, whatever you want to call it, publisher that says, we want to do this. Well, my writing and my teaching kind of got really involved. Mm-hmm. Right. They were kind of closely connected because people read my book. They'd want me to teach them, et cetera, et cetera. And then I moved out to Colorado And my wife to be, was a 3rd-degree black belt in Taekwondo. And she had a class at the rec center. And she goes, "You're going to help me teach." And that's when I got my first experience teaching kids.
Wow.
Yeah, that one, Now, mind you, I'd been teaching not only individuals, but by this time I'd started teaching police and military. And I was traveling around the globe. I mean, like, I went to Sweden and then to Poland, teaching cops in both countries, plus people from the former Eastern Bloc, right? I've taught, I've lectured at U.S. police academies. I've taught at German academies. I mean, all these all over, which is people were, interested in how do you do this stuff quickly?
Yeah.
How do you do it effectively? So teaching was there I was minding my own business when. I didn't want to be a teacher. It wasn't my goal. Just no, because I was still trying to figure shit out, So yeah, that's kind of, I can say I fell into teaching. I got shanghaied into teaching. I didn't want to be a teacher, but there I was.
So it sounds to me you initially wrote the first book so you wouldn't have to teach, and that led to basically you becoming a teacher because of the book.
Yeah, that worked out for me. Yeah.
Nice. And over 25 books later, you're still teaching.
People kept on asking me, "Well, what about this?" "Oh, okay. Well, okay, then I'll write a book about it." And it's funny. One of the things is it's a very sobering thought that Bruce Lee, when he was my age, had been dead for 40 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And I say that because people talk about all the great things that he did, that he wrote about on his teaching was so deep and profound. Well, yeah, but he was still, 30 when he died. I have kept on learning. And a lot of times what I found, somebody once asked me that, "Hey, if you were to rewrite these books, what would change?" And my response was, I wouldn't be so hard on karate.
Okay.
Because the thing was, what I got taught as karate was not classical karate. So it basically didn't work for what I was needing it for. But when I had gotten enough training in other arts, and, my main background, by the way, is Chinese arts.
Okay.
And they have a lot of subtle little motions that don't look like much. They're not big, wide motions, but they're incredibly powerful. And, basically learning how to move that way and generate way more power and be able to receive power. Like one of the things that my 5 family Kung Fu instructor did is he had me walk for 3 months. We'd meet up in Griffith Park in Los Angeles, and in the morning we'd work it, and he would just have me walk back and forth, back and forth. And one day while I'm walking, he looked at me and he does a full-on running body check into me. And he bounced back, but I looked at him like, "What the hell are you doing?" And then it dawned on me, wait, he just slammed into me. He goes, "Now you're ready to move on."
Nice.
But that's where the mechanics are so important. And most people, like when it comes to throwing a punch, when I described the 4 stages of a classical karate punch, the thing about it is when you do it that way, because it's 4 different punches, you have structure all the way through.
Okay.
But the way a commercialized karate person will throw a punch is that they will be wobbling along, their elbows everywhere, until they get to the very end, and then they lock it down. And that's where they're supposed to have structure, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The problem with that, though, is if anytime the range is different, they don't have structure. So they're basically like hitting somebody with a pillow.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So, if you get the mechanics, if you get the, quote, bunkai of this is how to do the move, you tighten here, you rotate here, etc., and you get that hammered down, and that's important, okay, that you can do it under stress. Yes, you do it slow, you practice, you build up, you work more and more, and you focus on the mechanics of the move, right? And then once you can do that, you start worrying about how to apply it.
Okay.
Right? Again, I walked for 3 months.
Yeah.
And then when I got body checked, that's when I realized, hey, maybe structure is important.
Okay.
Right. And it's kind of fascinating. It takes a lot of work and a teacher who knows what he's doing. But when you learn to move with structure, okay, that's where you run into, people who can move with structure, they'll hit you so hard that you'll get a speeding ticket in the next county over. If they don't have structure when they hit, no matter how fast or how many times they hit you, it's like they're hitting you with a pillow.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
The thing about it is, any art that you study, that stuff is there somewhere.
Right.
It may not be with this teacher, but somebody knew it at one time. So when I teach my martial mechanics class, I'm not teaching any particular style. I'm telling people to look at their own style and then take a technique. Let's take a strike. Let's look at how it is done. Now that you understand what the proper mechanics of that move is, how can you apply that?
Okay.
Right. And that's where people find out of wow, I thought this was a punch, but it's a block too. It's a throw. It's all this other stuff. It's yes, you can do all these wonderful things if you have this structure, and playing with it is how you learn it.
Mm-hmm. Back to your books a little bit, over 25 books. If someone has never read one of your books and they want to start, they want to figure out what you're talking about in your books, is there one you'd recommend they start with?
The one I like the most is What You Don't Know Can Kill You.
Okay.
Right. And that was co-written with Jenna Meek, who's a firearms instructor, by the way.
Okay.
And what we did is we looked at both firearms and martial arts training from the standpoint of, hey, this is what isn't being taught, right? That people are so focused on the form, they're not looking at the structure. They're so, focused on winning a fight. They're not looking at the legal aftermath and the requirements of when, what constitutes self-defense versus no, you're fighting.
Okay.
Right. And fighting is illegal. Self-defense is legal.
Yeah.
Right. But the difference is, when you claim self-defense, it's what's called an affirmative defense, which is you're admitting you did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did it. What you're saying, I did it. But then you have to explain and prove why what you did was necessary.
Okay.
So it's not only me saying, yeah, I did self-defense. It's no, you have to explain and you have to know why you needed to do that and why that was an appropriate response and not too much force or too, when it's too little because you get your ass kicked, but you have to be able to justify why you did it.
Okay.
And it's justifying it to people who may not want to have you justify it.
Yeah.
I had an incident not too long ago, actually it was a few years past. There was a guy who was having a really hard time and he was becoming problematic. And he attacked a co-instructor of mine. And my co-instructor dropped him with one punch, right? Which is actually he doesn't know what he's doing. So I grabbed the guy, I pulled him out, and he is yelling and screaming and howling, threatening my co-instructor. And as he's yelling and screaming, the cops pull up. Oh, goody. So, I immediately go lean up against the trash can. Right, and I'm waiting, and the guy was bleeding through his nose, and the sergeant who was there turned and looked at me and goes, "Sir, what you did is called mutual combat, and you will be arrested for it." And I looked up at him and I said, "We'll talk about that." And I got a weird expression, right? Then another officer came over. I explained to him what happened. We spoke. That I broken up a fight. I was trying to calm the guy down. And, the cop, he's talking to me. He looks over to the sergeant and goes, "Sarge, disregard what you said before. It's not what happened." We went in and talked to the other guy and he explained it. Eventually the cop says, "Okay, so I'm just going to write this up as self-defense. You want to charge it? Nah, we don't want to charge him. Just, we're done with it."
Nice.
But one of the things that you don't hear, now that ended up happy.
Yeah.
Right. Another incident, the last time I ended up looking down the barrel of a cop's gun. In the officer's defense, I was kneeling on the guy's head at the time. Mm-hmm. And it was 1 a.m, etc. And the cops pulled up, they pulled their guns, and they said, "Get off him." And I rocked back, held up my hands, and I said, "I will comply, but first you got to know, this guy's on the fight. If I let him up, he'll attack us again." Right? Mm-hmm. Now, the cop didn't win any brownie points when he said, "I'll take that chance." What did I just do there?
You definitely gave him a warning.
Yeah, but I also did some more information. I communicated that I was going to cooperate.
Yeah.
But what did I tell him?
That if you let the guy up, he was going to attack again.
Yes, which repaints the image of me kneeling on his head.
Yep.
Right? Now, the funny thing about it is that other cops showed up, and the guy that I was kneeling on his head was drunk, and he had attacked some customers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. There was evidence there, and we're telling him what happened. We did this, and, there's evidence of this, there's that, and et cetera. And the cop asked, did you hit him? Now, that's kind of a trick question, and I knew that. Right. And I said, no, I used a prescribed takedown to control him, yada, yada, yada. So the thing about it is, while we're doing this, we're talking to this cop while the other cops are talking to the drunk. And the drunk decided to become very obnoxious with a female officer who, oddly enough, when the guy screamed out what he did, and I'm not going to repeat it online, the cop that we were talking to blinked and says, you guys can go. Right. And as we walked back into where we worked, the female cop was kneeling on this drunk's head, and she was doing really heavy knee work.
Wow.
Right. Now, the thing about it is, I went from looking down the barrel of a cop's gun to being told to leave in under 3 minutes.
Wow.
Right. Now, I was a professional. I was a violence professional. I had this stuff. But that's not something you're going to get taught in a martial arts class. And that's what Jen and I wrote about in the book.
Okay.
Okay. So it's like fill in the gaps of what you're being taught isn't wrong, but there's more stuff you need to know.
Nice. I'm actually adding that one to my list because I definitely want to check that one out. So over your career, I mean, you've been doing this for a very long time. You said you've studied 7 different martial arts, and I use a lot on the Chinese side. I know a lot of times the Chinese martial arts, there's a lot of philosophy involved in that. So over your martial arts journey, is there one philosophy for you that's at the top of your list?
Don't get hit.
I like it.
The thing is, a lot of people, the approach that they take is they're more focused on the damage they're going to cause to the other guy, that they think that's the solution. I'm more of the philosophy of let's see if I can talk it down without violence, right? If I can avoid using force. And, if I can set the guy off as a happy, he's content, right?
Yeah.
Even better, right? Because I don't have to be looking over my shoulder. If I am attacked, if I do have to go hands-on, I want to end it as quickly and efficiently as possible. And that's regardless of the level of force I'm using.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's part of why my focus on neutralization is so important.
Okay.
Okay. That once I neutralize the guy, I can assess, how much force do I need to use? Right. And I can make that decision because at this split second, the guy can't hurt me. Right.
Yeah.
So now I can decide what to do. And, the thing is, the quicker I end it, the safer it's going to be for both of us. And once a lot of the stuff that you do to neutralize the guy actually sets him up to end the situation, because the guy attacks, I do the defensive motion that I described. That deflects his punch. I extend my arm. I twist it again. I've destroyed his balance, right? Now I can decide how hard he's going to land. Okay. I can decide if I throw him, I can take him down in a way that will really hurt him. And like if he attacked me with a knife, I'm going to really hurt him.
Yeah.
Right. On the other hand, if he's drunken Uncle Albert, if I hurt him, Aunt Bessie's going to be pissed.
Yep.
It's a family reunion. Albert's drunk again. And, if you're the kind of guy that the family looks at and goes, can you handle Albert? So, scaling force is a big issue.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of martial arts don't train you to scale force. Right. But again, if you go back to the classics, you have the ability to scale force way better than if you are doing traditional or commercial.
Okay. With your background, you're basically your whole career has been involved with violence prevention. So with that, are you a fan of like combat sports? Do you watch MMA? Are you a fan of the UFC?
Not really.
Okay.
It's a sport. The guys are great athletes, but it's watching mixed martial arts was kind of a busman's holiday.
Okay.
Are you familiar with that term?
I've never heard that one.
Well, if you got a guy who drives a tour bus, where does he go on holiday? That he's not been there for work.
Okay.
It's like,
yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, fine. I can watch two guys fight. Gee, that was Saturday night at work.
It makes sense.
Except for this time I had, at work I had to interfere. It's like, okay. So yeah, it's kind of like they're fun.
Mm-hmm.
They're enjoyable. I can look at and appreciate the skill and the effort that goes into it. But one of the problems that I really had was back when the Gracies started the UFC, there was a brilliant bit of marketing that they did. Is being as it was based in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, what they said is no holds barred.
Yep.
Okay. And that is a very specific term.
Mm-hmm.
And it is exact for sports fighting.
Yeah.
Okay. It means there are no jiu-jitsu holds that are not allowed.
Right.
Okay. Now, up north and, north of the border here, no holds barred means no rules.
Exactly. Yep.
And that's way, way different than what the UFC was.
Yeah. Even in the beginning, when they only had 2 official rules, there still were other rules that just were implied.
Yeah. The official rules is like, there's a lot of them. They just claim it. But
yeah,
marketing of it was, ooh, this is street fighting with no rules, right?
Because if there really was no rules, people would be bringing weapons in the cage with them.
Oh, hell, I'd step into the ring with 5 of my friends and we'd all have weapons.
Exactly.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, the marketing of it became, and for the longest time, the this is street fighting. Well, let me tell you, from having actually done street fighting, that grappling thing that you guys are so excited about? Yeah, you don't want to do that in a bar.
Yeah, no.
And out on the street, have you ever dealt with people who will watch you go down to the ground and then decide to throw in kicks just because it's fun?
Yep.
Not the guy's buddies, right, who will do extra damage while you're busy handling his friend, but, just a random stranger going, hey, here's a free shot.
Yep.
That kind of stuff. Going to the ground wasn't something that I liked doing, right? Yeah. Now, having said that, I will tell you part of the reason that when it comes to jiu-jitsu, I am really impressed with you can apply it straight out of the box about controlling somebody safely, right? It's wonderful, okay? It's just you only do it in situations where you're not dealing with these other factors. Like, hey, I got to sit on drunken Uncle Albert. He swung at me, fine, but I can't, so I'll just wrap him up and I'll hold him. There is a time and a place for that kind of fighting.
Right.
But it isn't universal, nor is it specific to street fighting.
Yeah.
Right? And claiming it is marketing.
Yeah. Just like the whole every fight goes to the ground. Like, no, it doesn't. Not at all.
Do you know where that came from?
Probably the Gracies.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, they did it. Okay. There was a guy by the name of Sergeant Greg Dossey. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Dossey and I became friends. Okay. Greg Dossey was discovering that the Los Angeles Police Department's combative systems or, control tactics were not doing well. Mm-hmm. Okay. And what he did is he did statistical analysis of all these incidents that officer said, this happened, this happened, this happened. And what he did is he assigned numbers to this. Okay. And what the thing is, what he was talking about is police arrests. Okay.
Okay.
Where they had a resisting suspect that they needed to remove his ability to move. All right. So they could cuff him, they could control him. Right. Mm-hmm. And you can slam the guy against the wall, you can slam him against the car, but what one thing is there all the time? The ground.
Yeah.
So the thing is, when you talk police arrest of resisting suspects, the number of times that an incident goes to the ground is extremely high. Now, the question is it both the officer and the guy go to the ground, or does the suspect go to the ground?
Right.
Right, and the officer sitting on top of him. So Greg did this report, and he went to the bosses and say, hey, we have to change our training on control tactics to match this reality. Mm-hmm. And he created a council of forces, people who have experience. And I was on the council, and so were the Gracies.
Okay.
Okay. But I actually held in my hand. Well, Greg was on the phone. He handed me the report, and then he took a call. And I'm flipping through his report going, ooh. So the thing is, the amount of incidents that go down to the ground with police is much, much higher.
Yeah.
Right. But the Gracies took that, claimed 90% of all fights go to the ground, and used it as marketing. And then said, oh, we got this from a police document.
Okay.
Brilliant marketing.
Yeah, definitely.
Right alongside with no holds barred means no rules.
Right.
So, I mean, when it comes to their marketing, I cannot speak highly enough of the Gracies.
Yeah.
When it comes to what people believe because of their marketing, yeah, it's a different subject.
Yeah, I would agree. That's interesting. I'd never heard that story before.
Yeah. Well, there I was holding the report in my hand. It was like, woo! That was a fanboy nerd moment.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. All right. I have a few fun questions we use to wrap up the interview.
Okay.
Now, I know you said you personally not really a fan of MMA, but let's just say you decided at some point in your life you were going to fight in the UFC. I want to know, what's your walk-up song going to be? What music's playing as you're taking that walk into the cage?
Give Me 3 Steps by Leonard Skinner.
I like it. No one's ever picked that one. That's a good one. I love Leonard Skinner.
Yeah. Well, part of it is, looking at it, somebody once described me of an individual with a whole lot of experience.
Mm-hmm.
He looked at me, he goes, look, you don't understand. There's a lot of guys who could beat Marc MacYoung in the ring, right?
Mm-hmm. But
in the alley, he'd run their asses over with a truck.
Nice. That's awesome.
So, yeah, it's like, yeah, am I going to step in the ring? Oh, hell no.
Yeah.
You mean I'm going to meet him under these conditions, which has all, like cops, we had a training program come to us and say, hey, could you come up with a training program for cops to handle mixed martial artists?
Mm-hmm.
And Rory Miller and I, who were working together at the time, basically said, yeah, okay, what you do is this is what you put in your report. The individual indicated he was skilled in these systems, and this is why I had to taser him. So it's justifying that use of force. It's like, you're not going to win against this guy in his field, which he excels in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, meeting this guy under his conditions, oh, hell no.
Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. Who are 3, 4, 5 names you would put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts?
Let's see. Rory Miller.
Nice.
Wim Demir.
Nice.
Who, I love Wim. He's a Tai Chi guy who makes me, I say something and he proves me wrong. And I'm like, damn, nice. That is impressive. Let's see. Out of respect to Hawkins Chung, my Wing Chun instructor.
Okay.
God, I had a moment there where I went back to LA and I said, he's getting on. We need to go visit. My wife's, and it's like, she's a 3rd degree in Taekwondo.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, okay, we'll go meet him. And we walk in and I'm like, Sifu, you taught me years and years ago. And he looked at me and goes, I remember you. You were a fighter. All these other guys, they're not fighter. You a fighter. So it was like, thank you. You honor me. And, Sifu, I got to tell you, your teaching saved my life,
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
And another man who I would put on is Colonel Rex Applegate.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. And I got taught by people who were trained in Applegate's system.
Wow. Okay.
And yeah. And quite frankly, they saved my life too.
Okay.
So when I finally got to meet Applegate, it was like, oh, grandfather, I owe you my miserable life. I am so honored to finally meet you, And he and we would go to these Soldier Fortune conventions and NRA convention. And I love talking to that guy, sitting around having coffee.
That's cool.
Was just a great honor. So yeah, those would be,
okay.
Mount Rushmore.
That's a great Mount Rushmore. I like it. And two former guests, so you can't go wrong with that also.
Oh yeah, well there's that too. You know,
Nice.
good,
All right,
good taste.
that's right. All right. Obviously, you can't pick one of yours. A favorite martial arts book. Is there one that you really enjoy? You recommend to other people that you didn't write?
Yeah, anything by Rory Miller.
I kind of figured you were going to say that. Rory's been put up there. A lot of guests have picked him. That's one of the reasons I reached out to him 3 years ago, because I kept hearing his name pop up, and I'm like,
oh yeah,
who is this guy? I gotta meet him. So yeah.
Well, you know, Rory and I worked together before COVID.
Okay.
And one of the things, it was so funny because he would say stuff and I'm like, oh my God, that's perfect way of saying. I would say stuff and he's like, yes, I never thought about it that way. Yes, that's perfect. And it got to a point of like, who said it originally? I don't remember. And, you know, but the back and forth, and he and I would bounce off each other, and just the amazing stuff of, you know, like he did a video on joint locks. Mm-hmm. Right, which is amazing, right? Yeah. Because he takes all this complicated joint lock stuff and reduces it to some really basic stuff of this is how you do joint locks. Now, remember, he was a prison guard, right? And he had to do this stuff, so he had that practical approach. Yeah. You know, although there is a funny story. He was having a really rough morning waking up. Mm-hmm. We were at a seminar that we were teaching at. And he was like, man, the coffee's just not working, you know? I need somebody to punch me to wake me up. And I said, okay. And I came in hard and fast, and we ended up rolling on the floor. And I lost because I was laughing so hard. You know, it was awesome. So much fun. It was like, you know. That's great. But it was like, thank you. I really needed that. And I was like, glad to help. You know,
that's actually awesome. No, his meditations on violence, I think at least 20 of my guests have picked that as their favorite book. So yeah, definitely. So this one you may not have an answer for. It's about 50-50, but do you have a favorite martial arts video game? Did you ever get into gaming at all?
I am into gaming.
Okay.
And I admit, back in the day when I played Doom, mm-hmm. I would have a bad day and I'd use the cheat codes and I'd go around using brass knuckles.
Nice.
You know? Yeah.
That's awesome.
But the other game that I play is Guild Wars 2.
I've heard of that one. Yeah. Someone else mentioned that. Okay.
Yeah. And one of the things, I have a very strong background, and one of the things that I don't mention as a formal martial arts, but I have training in, is Western swordsmanship.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Not fencing, but actual live steel fighting.
Yeah.
Right. And that totally changed my mindset about, you know, getting offline and, you know, and how to fight. And it really, I can run around with a sword and kill electrons. I mean, you know, I'm fighting all the time. Right? So, yeah, you know, that would be my video game. But that's because I also like sword fighting.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. How about a favorite martial arts TV show?
I was really enamored of the first few seasons of Cobra Kai.
Nice. Yep.
Yeah, I really like that. And I mean, and then it kind of became over the top. They jumped the shark. But yeah, I really enjoyed that.
That's cool. You know? Yeah, I enjoy it too. I enjoyed the later seasons of it. Yeah, they definitely weren't as good as the first few, but still fun to watch. But all right, how about a favorite martial arts movie?
Does the first half of Roadhouse count?
I've had a few people pick that. I actually had I've had one or two people involved in that movie on my show. So yeah, I would say that counts.
Well, let's see. The Topless Dancer was a personal favorite, but that's generally when I stopped watching it. But having said that, did you know that woman went out and became a stunt performer?
No, I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, like she does stunts and all that other stuff. She, you know, pretty big in the industry. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the stuff that, you know, the first part of it, there's a lot of good talking about, you know, like your job. People come to a bar to have fun. And, you know, they give you some really good information of, you know, talk it down, be nice, ask them to leave, and, you know, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's not bad. Now, I have to admit, I used to love Chopsakis.
Yep.
And when I saw the Kung Fu Hustle, yes. Right, I love that movie. I mean, that one just cracked me up. my wife, who was not into the Chopsaki flicks, does not understand why I find it so funny.
It's so good. It's so enjoyable. I mean, the what I call kind of the dumb martial arts movies. Some of those are the best ones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. But when they are spoofing kung fu flicks so well, I'm like, yeah, because growing up, we had a thing called the New Art Theater, and that was, I can't remember the chain, but there were old theaters that were revival theaters. And they would show movies from the past. And every night, like once a month in their scheduling, they would have Kung Fu theater.
Nice.
And it was like, oh man, let's go watch this on the big screen. Yeah, let's go. So,
That's cool.
Yeah. And, I grew up watching those things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I enjoy them. There's a lot of the fun ones. And I have to admit, I even like Mortal Kombat, the first one.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. Kerry Taragawa,
Yeah.
Did you ever see him in a series called Space Rangers?
No.
It's a science fiction series, and he is of a race that makes Klingons look warm and fluffy.
Really?
Yeah. And everybody's afraid of this guy, right? And he plays it so well, right? But, he's part of a team that they're misfits. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it now. Wow. Yeah, one season, 93 to 90. Oh, wow. Linda Hunt from NCIS Los Angeles was in it? Wow.
Oh, yeah. It is so much fun. But like I said, the Grokken is what they call them.
Okay.
The species.
Only six episodes. I need to go and find it online now and watch it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have the DVDs.
Nice.
I'm a big fan of having hard media.
Oh, yeah, me too.
But yeah, so okay. I have them.
Nice. All right. Now, this one doesn't have to be a martial arts movie. Any movie you've seen in your whole life, a favorite movie fight scene. There's one fight scene that jumps out when you think about that. And we've had people pick Rocky, Star Wars, Marvel movies, The Princess Bride, Bruce Lee versus Chuck Norris.
The Princess Bride, that gets an honorable mention.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
For what it feels like, I will talk about the fight finale in Lethal Weapon, the original.
Oh, yeah, with the triangle choke.
Yeah, and the, let me help. No. Okay, been there, done that. That was great choreography. That was just when you got two guys that decide that's it, we're just going to mess each other up.
Yeah.
That was a hell of a fight. On the other hand, from a practical standpoint, one thing that I didn't want to see the movie. I fought against it, and guys like my son, Terry Trahan, another guy I know who's an amazing Salat player, and my friend Clint Overland, who is a force of nature. They are all telling me I had to go see the first John Wick movie.
Okay.
And I'm like, no, I don't really want to watch it. I'm just like, I've seen it. And then I went and I watched it. And, they're saying, no, you got to go see it. And I was like, fine, all right. And I went and I saw it. And what I really liked is if you watch the John Wick movies, you will actually see him doing what I was talking about with neutralizing.
Okay.
Right. And the reason he goes through these guys so fast is that he neutralizes their ability and then he finishes them.
Okay. Before I let you go, is there any last minute things you want to get out there? First of all, I love your story. Absolutely. And I can't wait I'm going to be ordering a few of your books, but definitely the first one you mentioned, I'm getting that one for sure. It's already in my cart on Amazon. So I'll be ordering that one, but, and I'll put links for whatever you need me to when the episode comes out, but any last minute stuff you want to get, like parting words you want to shout out?
One of the things that Jen and I talked about in these, in the book, look at all the other stuff. Don't fixate on just one thing. Yeah. Like the physical stuff, like gun, in the shooting world, there are people that all they fixate on is guns, which is lethal force. Mm-hmm. There's, knife fighters that it's also lethal force, but they're really fixated on this stuff. Empty-handed fighters often fixate on, I'm going to win this fight this way. It's like, no, there's so much more to the subjects of winning when to use them and what context you can use them, when you absolutely need to use them, what you need to know about, okay, this is the level of force I need to use in these kind of situations. On the other hand, in this situation, I can't mess around. I don't have time to do this stuff. I need to end this guy now, right? As opposed to also, hey, how easy it is to talk people out of being violent. Mm-hmm. And what's really weird is de-escalation and communication is really so much easier to do when you know you can physically defend yourself. Yep. And it's kind of like, all right, I trust my training well enough that I am willing to try and talk it down. Mm-hmm. Because if the guy doesn't want to be talked down, well, I can handle that too. But how about we try and talk it down and come to a peaceful solution, right? Mm-hmm. But that really is something that a lot of people don't really look at from the standpoint of what confidence do you get from your martial arts training to do other stuff?
Right. Yeah, no, that's what, even myself, I tell people, when I was in high school, I was the shyest kid in my school. And, mm-hmm. And now I've been on stage in front of 5,000 people announcing MMA fights and emceeing events and stuff. And it's 100% because of martial arts.
Yes. And I mean, that's the same thing. I have been on 3 continents, right? I've traveled to 11 different countries because of my fighting skill. But really what got me there was the other skills that I was able to develop because I could defend myself. Mm-hmm. And it's wonderful to be able to walk on, I'm in a different country. Wow.
Yeah.
Although the time I hit the Prime Minister of Sweden's bodyguard, that was awkward.
Nice.
It was a training moment.
Okay.
Yeah, but what was really fun is we were talking about a thing called Slavo Goznik ran International Police Defensive Tactics Association, and he got me to various countries to teach. And we're in Sweden, and he had a term that he called IBR, Instinctive Body Reaction, which is when you apply force to somebody, their body is going to react a certain way. And that's a window of opportunity there. And what Slavo was focusing on is you create an IBR and exploit it, right? Mm-hmm. And I walked up to one guy and I was talking about IBR, and there's a particular slap that really hurts. It doesn't cause damage, but it hurts. Mm-hmm. And I did it to one guy and he was screaming, oh. I turned around and did it to this other guy, and I didn't know that he was the bodyguard of the Prime Minister. And I hit him and his head snapped back, and then he snapped back and he was laser focused on me. And my first words were, don't kill me. Wait a minute. I want to make a point here. And I pointed at both of them. I said, which one of these guys had the IBR? And the folks looked at it. Well, the guy who was doing the screaming is like, no, they both had IBRs, right? They were just different. Now, this guy was about to eat my liver, but that guy, he was done. Right. Yeah. So the thing about it is you create an IBR in the guy and you exploit what you get, but you don't expect it to be one or the other. You need to have your eyes opened so you could exploit what you do get.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, I slapping a Prime Minister's bodyguard, not my smartest move ever.
That's awesome. I love it. You're a great storyteller. Seriously. I can't wait to read your books just because of that. I love it. Oh yeah. But seriously, I so much appreciate you taking the time to do this, especially like on a Sunday. I know weekends are usually family time for people, and it's worked out so well. And I've loved hearing you tell your story, and I love what you're doing. I'm going to put, like I said, put links for all your stuff so people can buy more of your books and hopefully go to more trainings if you keep doing them. But I've enjoyed this so much, and I can't wait to get this episode out for the listeners to hear.
Well, great. I have had a wonderful time.
Wrap up today's episode by taking your own training to the next level with Martial Theory by Steve Perlman, the book that's redefining martial arts thinking. Find Martial Theory on Amazon today. Join the worldwide movement at martialtheoryu.com, where you'll find Q&A sessions, live events, and direct guidance from Steve himself. Use code EverydayMA for 20% off for life. That's martialtheoryu.com, code EverydayMA. Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.